Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to ask you a question that I don't think we ask ourselves often enough. When was the last time you truly listened to your inner voice? Not the voice of social media, not the opinions of family, not the expectations of society, not the pressure to keep up with everyone else. I mean your voice, the quiet one, the one that speaks when everything else becomes silent. As we reach the halfway point of the year, many of us automatically start thinking about goals like what I have achieved, what have I failed to do, am I behind, am I successful enough? But today, I want to shift the conversation. So instead of asking how much have I achieved, let's ask who have I become during these past 6 months? Because sometimes the biggest achievements aren't visible, they are internal. Because you know what, we measure the wrong things. We live in a world that loves numbers, followers, subscribers, book sales, views, awards, income, promotions, because we like to celebrate numbers. So numbers are easy to celebrate, but creativity doesn't always work that way. You know why? Because sometimes your greatest achievement is simply refusing to quit. Sometimes it's writing one more page. Sometimes it's creating even when nobody is watching. Sometimes it's beginning again. Those victories don't appear on a resume, but they shape your life. So how do they shape our life? It's a question that we avoid it, that why don't we listen to the quiet voice? So I've realized something this year, that our inner voice rarely shouts, it whispers. Because the problem is modern life is very loud. Because of notifications, breaking news, deadlines, algorithms, opinions. Advice from people who don't even know us. No wonder it's difficult to hear ourselves think. That's why I believe silence isn't empty. Silence is where clarity begins. Because every time I step away from constant noise, I notice something surprising. The answer I was searching for were already inside me. They simply needed space. Because creativity isn't a straight line. One lesson I have learned this year is that creativity has seasons. There are days when ideas arrive effortlessly. Words flow, stories appear almost magically. Everything feels exciting. Then there are other days you stare at a blank page. Nothing feels good enough. You question everything. Earlier, I used to think those difficult days meant I wasn't creative. Now I understand something different. Those days are also part of creativity. And those are related to every artist, every writer, every musician, every filmmaker. Every creator experiences them. Because growth isn't always visible. Sometimes ideas are quietly developing beneath the surface, just like seeds underground. So it's like looking back at the first half of the year. Instead of asking myself, what did I accomplish? And I started asking, what did I learn? And this year reminded me to stay curious, to keep writing. To experiment and to create even when I wasn't sure where the journey would lead. Some projects succeeded and others taught me valuable lessons. Both were worthwhile. Because creativity isn't about perfection, it's about participation. You know why? Because small wins matter. So sometimes we overlook our achievements because they don't seem extraordinary. But think about it. Did you learn a new skill? Did you finish reading a book? Did you write consistently? Did you become more keeper of patience? Did you finally start something you had postponed for years? Because those are achievements. We often wait for huge milestones before celebrating ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't. You know why? Because small progress eventually becomes remarkable progress. And my creativity journey this year is something like that. As someone who enjoys writing, storytelling, journalism, and exploring creativity, this year has reminded me that every project teaches something different. And some days I worked on flash fiction, other days I explored travel writing. There were moments when I experimented with visual storytelling, fashion concepts, and digital art. I also found myself returning to nature, not just as a place to visit but as a source of inspiration. Each creative experience, whether successful or challenging, became another chapter in my journey. Not everything I created was perfect, and that's perfectly okay. Because perfection isn't the goal, but growth is. So I stopped comparing my timeline with others, and this might be one of the most important lessons I have learned so far. Comparison is exhausting, and someone will always publish more books, someone will always have more followers, someone will always travel more, someone will always appear more successful, but none of them are living your story. Because your journey has its own pace, your creativity has its own rhythm. So, the moment we stop comparing ourselves with others, we finally have enough energy to become ourselves. So, what we are supposed to do is that we are supposed to trust the process. Writers know something interesting. The first draft is really the final draft. And you know why? Because life works the same way. Sometimes we expect ourselves to have everything figured out immediately. But maybe we are still writing chapter 3. Maybe the best chapters haven't happened yet. And that thought gives me hope. Because the point is that your inner voice has already knew about it. That I believe each one of us has an inner compass that quietly points toward the things that truly matter. And sometimes it encourages us to begin. And sometimes it tells us to rest. And sometimes it asks us to let go. So the challenge isn't finding that voice, the challenge is trusting it. Especially when everyone else has different opinions. So what creativity has taught me is simple, that it taught me how to keep patience. It has taught me resilience. It has taught me curiosity. It has taught me to embrace uncertainty. Perhaps most importantly, it has taught me that creating something meaningful often begins with simply showing up. Not because inspiration is guaranteed, but because discipline eventually invites inspiration. So as we move into the second half of the year, I would like to leave you with a few questions. What surprised you about yourself this year? What challenge made you stronger? What dream have you quietly continued to protect? And what have you created that you are proud of, even if nobody else has seen it? And perhaps the most important question of all, have you been listening to your own voice or everyone else's? Looking ahead, the second half of the year isn't about becoming a completely different person. It's about becoming a more authentic version of yourself. Keep creating, keep learning, keep making mistakes. keep growing. And trust that every small effort matters. Trust that every unfinished draft is leading somewhere, and trust that your inner voice knows your direction better than the noise around you ever will. So as I reflect on the first half of this year, I don't just see completed projects, I see lessons, I see quiet victories, I see moments of courage, I see curiosity, and I see growth that may not always be visible but is deeply meaningful. So wherever you are today, don't measure yourself only by what you have achieved. Measure yourself by what you have learned. But by how you have grown, by how you have continued despite uncertainty, because success isn't only about reaching destinations, it's also about becoming the person capable of reaching them. So thank you so much for spending these moments with me. If this reflection resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. And what's one lesson the first half of this year has taught you? Share it in the comments below. And let's inspire one another. Until next time, keep listening to your inner voice, keep creating with courage, and remember, sometimes the quietest voice inside you is the one that knows the way. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.